Welcome back to Left in the Attic. I'm Deep.
And I'm Anna. Today we're talking about the Attorney General's race, monopoly power, and what it means to hold massive corporations accountable with special guest and candidate for Attorney General, Hetal Doshi.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited about being here.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, we're super excited to have you. And before we jump into our topics for today, yesterday was International Women's Day. So I don't know if this has any significant meaning or if you did anything special. Deep, you want to?
I would say it was really cool to see on social media. It really did feel international, like to see like folks in like South Asia celebrating, folks in Europe celebrating. For me, I have an amazing daughter and an amazing wife, so I was trying to make sure I was everywhere at the same time. But we didn't do anything, go anywhere. Did you do anything? Did you go to any of the events?
I was trying to, you're going to get this here first. My birthday is tomorrow. And,
nice.
There's a candidate forum and some other things happening. And so I actually got the opportunity to spend International Women's Day with a small group of friends, early celebration of birthday. But I'm with Deep. I was, there's some years where it feels really pronounced and the energy and hype around a day like that feels especially meaningful. And I think yesterday was that day. And so I did a bunch of stuff last week leading up to the celebration of women this weekend, which I'd love to chat with you about too. But mostly it was a day spent, eating good food and celebrating another year around the sun.
Yeah. And my first thought when you said your birthday's tomorrow, I was like, ooh, you're a Pisces. Anyways.
Fellow Pisces energy?
No, I'm an Aries. Rar.
Oh,
I'm an Aries rar.
My younger sister is an Aries, so okay. I've grown up with this rar.
Yeah. Sorry, my brother's a Pisces, so there we go.
Very nice. Okay, sibling energy.
Yeah. For those listening, I have a Pisces moon though. So anyways, this is going to get way into the weeds, but Deep's a Sagittarius just to round this out.
So I'll tell you, my staff that in my team that I worked with, I have never been super into or educated about astrological signs, and I downloaded the CoStar app at their recommendation. Holy hell, there's just there are days where they're just avoid every Leo. You're going to get into a knife fight and we want you to be safe.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
it is serious. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I will say, I think the Pattern app's better than CoStar.
Oh.
I'm going to plug that here.
Okay.
Sponsor us, Pattern app or CoStar.
But just to round out the combo about International Women's Day, I did go to a few community events yesterday. Neither of them were for actually International Women's Day. One of them was a training on nonviolence, and another was an immigrant rights fundraiser, which was great. But my mom is visiting my 97-year-old grandma right now in southern New Mexico. She lives on the border. And so my mom sent me a selfie of her and my grandma yesterday morning. And, they're kind of my biggest inspo, as they're both strong women in my life that have not only supported me, but really guided me. So that's a cute little photo to start the day.
Yeah, I love the multi-generational celebration of something like this because it's really important as we think about the future, right? And what we have lived through in our lifetime. One of the best things about social media on days like yesterday is getting a historical lesson around what International Women's Day has looked like over the years. And so 1975, women couldn't get credit cards on their own, right? That feels shocking today, and yet it's in the last 50 years. So that multi-generational piece is huge.
Yeah, and actually, I mentioned this at the training I went to yesterday, that we need, especially right now, to cultivate more multi-generational spaces.
100%.
Yeah, because I feel like as someone part of the younger generation, when I feel hopeless and I've been in spaces with older women, for example, Latinas, they've said, this isn't my first time. I was on the picket line at 14, we've done it before, we'll do it again. And just hearing their wisdom and advice has been really supportive or helpful for me.
Yeah, and I think it cuts both ways because as someone, so I'm going to be 47 tomorrow, and so as someone who has a strong generation ahead of me and then so many strong generations younger than I am, seeing that point about the resiliency of our society and our government through really dark periods like Reconstruction and Jim Crow and things like that helps me think, okay, we've had a history here before and we will survive that. But at the same time, I never am more inspired than when I am in spaces with college students, law students, and I get the opportunity to teach antitrust or white collar crime classes there. And I always walk away from those spaces being like, wow, to the extent that we are worried about the future of our world, they are all right. That generation is okay and they are ready to take it on. And so I am with you on that multi-generational project because that's a marriage of hope, optimism, and experience. And that's exactly, I think, the secret sauce for right now.
Yeah.
Nice. That's amazing.
100% agree.
Love it. Well, you've already heard her voice. Just to introduce a little bit more to our audience, Hetal Doshi is a first-generation American, former federal prosecutor in Colorado, and former head of Biden-Harris administration's Antitrust Division in the Department of Justice. You've led major antitrust fights against Google, Apple, Ticketmaster that we're going to talk about later. And you've overseen hundreds of public servants. You've taken on powerful institutions on, and now you're kind of stepping into a new arena, running for Colorado Attorney General. First time you're running for political office, and you're running to protect working families, defend civil liberties, and make the law work for Colorado. So welcome to the pod. I just love having you here.
Thank you. One friendly amendment there is the Department of Justice's Antitrust Division was headed by Jonathan Cantor, and I was his deputy. So I don't want to make sure to all credit to Jonathan, who was a wonderful principal, and it was a privilege and an honor, though, to serve as the Biden-Harris administration's top antitrust litigator. So I supervised civil and criminal litigation and with Jonathan at the helm.
Nice.
Yeah, and Hetal, I would love to know a little bit more about your origin story and what got you into this work.
Thank you so much for that question. I often say it is such a wild life experience that I've ended up in this space talking to y'all about these issues. I am, as Deep mentioned, a first-generation American, proud daughter of two immigrants who came from India. My parents' immigration story is actually fairly unusual for that time period, for the early 1970s, in that they both were single when they came to America and met and fell in love here in America.
Oh, wow.
So there's, as Deep knows, right, there's a special term for that kind of relationship. It's a love marriage as opposed to any other kind of marriage. And it defined in a lot of ways the trajectory of my life because my parents did something that was unusual for that time. And so knowing that my mom at the time dropped out of community college to marry my dad, move into that one-bedroom apartment he shared with a bunch of Indian bachelors to try to make it work. Like there's a foundation to my life story that comes from that, right? And the rest of it in terms of origin story to ending up here is, and this often surprises people because I don't have an accent until after the second whiskey, but I grew up all over the Deep South. And so my dad is a chemical engineer. His big dream was to go to medical school, but he met my mom, fell in love, got married. I came soon thereafter, so that never happened. He's a chemical engineer who worked on nuclear power plants. And so if you were following that industry in the late 1970s, early 1980s, there was a ton of instability in that industry. And so he'd get a job, he'd lose the job, get a job. And like I went to 3 different kindergartens and we just moved around a lot. So Texas, South Georgia, and then 6th grade to 12th grade in a small town right outside of Birmingham, 80 miles from Selma.
Wow. That's amazing. I knew you grew up in the South, but I didn't know it was like that much hopping around.
Yeah.
So you've really seen a lot of the area. Do you still have a lot of connections down there?
I do. And it's really been incredibly formative to who I am. I mean, being in the cradle of the civil rights movement, it is impossible to ignore, apropos of the conversation we were just having, just that 40, 50, 60 years ago, these were struggles that people were fighting for, dying for in the streets. But to be a person of color and to not be either black or white in that space and growing up in that environment was a huge, huge influence in my life in terms of how I thought about social justice, how I thought about what it means to be a person of color in America, what it means to agitate for change. And so it brought me into the sphere of folks like Congressman John Lewis as a young person and getting the opportunity to see his work close up in Atlanta, for example. Really, like I said, it transformed who I was, what my values were, and it's what drew me to law school.
Yeah, and why antitrust work? I guess once you became a lawyer, was that just a natural pathway for you, or
no?
As every young lawyer grows up, I want to be an antitrust litigator.
I mean,
they're like the Sherman Act is my jam from 1890 to today.
Well, it's like in the zeitgeist now. Like we've on previous episodes have talked about like Lena Khan, and we've talked about holding corporate folks accountable. So it's like in the zeitgeist now, but definitely back then I feel like it wasn't talked about much.
No, fun fact, I didn't take antitrust in law school.
Oh, really?
No. And so I started my career in private practice. I grew up with a lot of financial instability and insecurity, and it was really important to me to be able to have a life where I could make the choices I wanted to make, not driven by money necessarily in that way, in the same way the scarcity that drove my parents. But I didn't do that much antitrust work there. And then when I became a federal prosecutor, prosecutor at DOJ, my initial appointment at DOJ was for the President Obama Financial Fraud Enforcement Task Force. And so that was related to the banks and the ways that they crashed the economy in 2008. So that also wasn't antitrust work. It was just pure fraud and grift, right? Mm-hmm. The antitrust work came later when the Biden-Harris administration came into office, and they knew that this was going to be a transformative era of antitrust work. And antitrust statutes had been kind of sleepy for some time, right? There were a lot of these things called consent decrees, just settlements, companies being like, oh, you can merge if you sell this percentage of your business. And I think under the leadership of Lena Khan and Jonathan Cantor and Tim Wu, there was just a totally different perspective to say, how do we take technocratic concepts like antitrust and make them meet the moment? Like, we know we don't have a lot of choices in whatever industry it is, and that causes prices to increase. It causes our experience to be bad. What do we do about it, right? How do we use these laws from the late 1800s to meet this moment? And when I was called initially about that opportunity, I thought it sounded really exciting, but I said two things. I was like, I'm a 20-year lawyer, but I'm not a 20-year antitrust lawyer. Mm-hmm. And number two, I live in Colorado and I'm not willing to move to Washington, D.C. for the job, as flattered as I am. And we made the latter point work out. It was end of COVID, but I think the thing that I viewed as the greatest challenge of meeting this moment for antitrust is that I came to it without that sort of learned and received tradition and wisdom. And so I could look at every set of facts and just say, that doesn't seem right to me. And I brought that fresh perspective. And I think that was sort of really helpful for us in our cases in court to kind of sit in the seat of the jury or the judge to say, how do you explain this concept in a way that really resonates emotionally about the power that companies have in this moment and how that affects our lives.
Yeah.
And you alluded, I think, to a little bit, but just to make sure that the listener and myself, let's face it, are fully aware of what exactly does it mean, like antitrust law or to be an antitrust attorney?
Yeah, great question. It means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. This is like a place where there are like a lot of hot takes, right? So here's what I think antitrust, and I think antitrust and consumer protection go hand in hand. Antitrust really is a system of rules and enforcement around the concept that competition is fundamentally good for consumers and for our economy. And I think in America, if we're talking about civil rights a little bit here today, right? MLK's famous speech in Washington was not just a speech delivered to Washington, it was about jobs.
Yeah, March
right?
on Washington for jobs.
And so antitrust is rooted in this concept that our realization of our freedoms comes from our economic freedom, our ability to be paid a fair wage for what we do, our ability to not be screwed in the prices that we pay for things. And so at its core, antitrust is about, what does a marketplace look like? Is there corruption or cheating or like consolidation of power? And if there is, what do we do about it?
Yeah, no, that's really helpful.
That's amazing. So just to set the scene here, you've gone from, lifelong public servant, working in these different administrations, both here and in D.C., and you've been recruited, or not recruited, but you've jumped into the fray for Attorney General. And I'm going to set the scene a little bit for our audience here. So currently the Attorney General's race has 4 individuals on the Democratic side, and because it's going to be a pretty blue wave side, we can pretty confidently say whoever wins the Democratic race will probably win in November.
I'm knocking on wood, Deep.
The reason why I want to emphasize that, though, is that the Attorney General's position in Colorado would often still go to Republicans even in blue years. So we would win the governor's mansion in, let's say, 2010 or 2014, but the Attorney General would still be a Republican, because it used to be viewed as sort of a, tough on crime job. You're
traditional
the,
law and order.
Top cop. But Phil Weiser really turned around the image of the office in many ways. Phil Weiser, current Attorney General, is term limited, is running for governor. Check out episode 11, by the way. Episode 12 for that. So he's not running anymore, and 4 people have kind of jumped in to fill his shoes. And those shoes aren't just, hey, this person is involved with criminal justice in Colorado, but they're also involved with keeping AI companies accountable. They're responsible for getting huge settlements for the folks of Colorado, suing bad corporate landlords, suing big tech companies. So it seems
I've done both.
It seems like your experience really lines up. And the other 3 candidates besides you are Jenna Griswold, current Secretary of State, David Seligman, who was on episode 9?
Maybe
11.
Well, was on an episode, so check it out.
Yeah, check it out. Just check out the whole catalog. And then Michael Doherty, who's currently the DA of Boulder, who's also episode 8.
Maybe 7 or 8. Yeah,
it's one
I
of those
think. Let's
episodes.
say he's the one before David. I think.
Just check it out. So really glad to have you here. Would love to know, why are you jumping in to politics in 2026? It's a crazy time to
Get your head checked, girl. Right?
You and Anna, both federal employees, were like, let's get into the fray in a different way. So we'd love to know, why are you running for Attorney General, and what are the things you want to get done there?
Gosh, that's a big question. Let me break it down in terms of some of the really interesting things that you've said. I think that the portfolio and profile of AGs has shifted nationally, not just in Colorado, in terms of the traditional law and order, criminal justice, tough on crime, to something more expansive. And here's why I think that happens, because it relates partially to my why. I think for a really long time, people, understandably, because we live in a time-starved society, had a very short-term or limited view of what it meant to be a law enforcer, right? And so there are all these laws on the books, like this law related to antitrust from 1890, the Sherman Act, or the Clayton Act from the early 1900s, that people just didn't in the world walk around talking about. Antitrust is newly in, the world's vocabulary and whatever else. And so I think the shift in terms of what the Attorney General's backgrounds and experiences are reflects an awakening in society that, hey, we have all these laws on the books. They're supposed to be helping us. Why are our enforcers falling asleep at the wheel? Why are they beholden to corporate interest? Why are they lacking in the tenacity and grit to take on some of the most well-financed adversaries in the world? And so this is just about, I think, meeting a moment in terms of people saying, we actually, sure, it would be nice to have new tools and new laws, but we have the laws we need right now. And so someone should enforce them. In terms of why I am jumping in, this was not on the bingo card. Deep, you've known me for some time, right? Yep. I am a working lawyer, happily so. I loved my work at the Department of Justice because it was an opportunity for someone of my background and experience, and by that I mean my family story, who got to be in these incredibly privileged, sacrosanct spaces with the most powerful people in the world and reflect my family's point of view, which is to say, you don't need a fancy degree, or as Bob Dylan would say, you don't need, a weatherman to tell you which way the wind is blowing, right? You can look out into the world and see the deep structural problems we have where working families, even if they did everything right, still can't get ahead. And so the short answer to round out all of that to why am I jumping into this race is because I think this moment calls for a particular set of skills and experiences, particularly with respect to taking on the federal government. And I am well poised as someone who's been in the federal government. And you, once you've been a Fed, right, you know where the bodies are buried. And in order to hold this administration to account, to actually say we have laws and they should be implemented and enforced fairly, I think you need to have a specific set of experiences. And I bring that, and it means something to me in a moment where Donald Trump is trying to redefine what it means to be an American and a patriot, to be someone who has my name and my life story to say, I'll see you in court, right? That's not just a political tagline. It is a lived experience. And it is what every morning I get up and it's first thing is, oh my God, what have you done? Second is, there is no more righteous fight that I could be engaged in.
No, that's amazing to hear. It is this thing, both of you have this very similar story where it's career public servant. You were, after being in the classroom, getting your PhD, going back into the public service.
First of all, hat tip to the public service and being educators to both of you. My younger sister is a public school teacher in Maryland, so thank you.
But it's this, sometimes I think there's a yin and yang to this whole situation where it's the Trump administration's firing all these public servants. We're making public service less acceptable to people who want to be doing good things. But then those people go out and are like, hey, what are the other change we can make? And I'm hoping, you two, there's hundreds and thousands and hopefully millions of you all across the nation that are taking on these projects.
Yeah, and I was going to say, Hetal, I joke, but I say now that I'm in my villain era. Quote.
Oh, I've been there. We call it my black cat era.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah. So anyways, losing our jobs with the federal government and then being all right, for me, it was recommitting to service, but figuring out what that looks like. And it sounds like it was the same thing for you, and entering this fight and run for AG. And I would love to know, if elected as the next Attorney General, what would you like to do for Coloradoans? Or how do you, plan to keep our state safe?
Yeah, well, lots to say there, but to me, it really breaks down to three categories. And so the first will not surprise you. Defend Colorado, right? Protect rule of law, fight a lawless, feckless administration. And, that's a place where, as I looked on the landscape of the race, right, I do think federal expertise matters a lot there. And so I'm the only candidate in this race and there's a great field of candidates, right? I should start with that. I've known everyone in this race for some time. We are friends. But I think having that federal expertise matters in terms of holding the administration to account.
One of your opponents allegedly argued in front of the Supreme Court. So, there's some federal experience. I'll explain that joke some other day.
I'm going to let you handle that. You draw from that what you will. But the second thing that I think matters a lot. So number one, fighting Trump, that's table stakes. Every candidate says they're going to do it. I think I have a unique angle on it. Number two, though, I'm a big believer that being anti-Trump or being anti-something is not a vision. What are you for? What are you pro?
Yeah.
And for me, I think, there are members of my family, first-gen American, that voted for Trump, right? And I think that is largely tied to the economic story that we've been talking about here today, where there's this idea, if I can't afford food, housing, healthcare, what do I care about lofty ideas about democracy? And so to me, the second piece of the puzzle has to be, how do we build a better society on the other side of a Trump presidency so this never happens again? We have to Trump-proof our economy and our government. And so that looks like antitrust enforcement, consumer protection, workers' rights. How do we restructure the power dynamic so that we understand that this isn't a battle between the left and the right. It's between those who have power and those who don't. And I am all about making sure we make sure that those who have power cede it. And then the third area, which is very near and dear to my heart as someone who chose Colorado as her home, it is the third plank has to be about freedom. And that's not just freedom over our bodies and about our lives, but it's also freedom about our spaces. A lot of us came to Colorado because of our love of the great outdoors, and the environmental rollbacks, that's not a natural tie to the economic policies that I care a lot about, but that couldn't be more consequential in this moment. And so I think Colorado has a real opportunity to step into a void, into a national landscape, and be a leader on states' rights with respect to environmental policy. And in Colorado, that also means championing clean and renewable energy, because we have a natural innovation hub here for that. So those are the kinds of things that I'd like to accomplish as AG.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. So it's amazing and it's coincidental that we have you on today, because one of the cases that you were leading at the DOJ was suing Ticketmaster, right?
That's right.
And as a big Swiftie myself, so you're not a Swiftie.
I have questions, Deep. I have questions.
Actually, no, really, of the two of us, Deep is the Swiftie. He has a sweatshirt.
I did. I should have worn this sweatshirt today.
Yeah.
And it's very warm, though.
Yeah. The reason he's bringing that up is because people remember. Is that what you're going to say?
Yes. So if you remember during Taylor Swift's big concert tour, the New Eras tour, along with other things, if you're a Bad Bunny fan, when you go on Ticketmaster, there's price gouging, there's limited access. Everyone was so frustrated. Remember, Twitter was blowing up about this. The Biden and Harris administration, as their top antitrust litigator, one of the things you did, along with suing, of course, Google and everyone else, is this Ticketmaster case. After you left and Biden-Harris administration folded over, the Trump administration has been picking up where you all were still settling. Looks like they've given maybe a sweetheart deal, maybe a corporate-friendly deal, but it's landing today. I think the docket probably just updated. So I'm not even sure how familiar you are with the deals, but would love to give you an overview about how you saw that case when you were there and what's maybe wrong with what's happening now.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, so yes, the case against Ticketmaster and Live Nation is a case that I'm exceptionally proud of, and we actually built a bipartisan coalition of, at the time, I think it was 40 states attorneys general. Don't hold me to that number, but to build a coalition that big in America in this moment is huge, right? And that should tell you what we all know from our own lived experience, that going to a concert in America at this point is expensive. It is a huge hassle, and it really robs us of some of the joy that we should be getting from what is art fundamentally, right? And so the case that we brought, and I think anecdotally we know why the case is important, but let me just give you drop some stats on you here, right? Ticketmaster manages more than 400 artists. They control 60% of concert promotions in America. They own something like 265 venues. All right? 60 of the 100 amphitheaters in America are owned by Ticketmaster. No other competitor owns more than a handful. Wow. And then, on top of that, they own 80% of the ticketing, so the ticket part of Ticketmaster for the primary like major concert venues in the world. So as you listen to those stats, I mean, the numbers aren't as important so much as the story they tell, which is that layer upon layer upon layer of the entire business operation of bringing art to Americans is controlled by one company.
Yep.
Right? And so our lawsuit said, like, this is hugely problematic for a lot of different reasons, and we stood on a stage in announcing that lawsuit and said Ticketmaster needs to be, Live Nation needs to be broken up.
Yep.
And that case was pending in federal court in New York City. We're really proud of the fact that it's in New York City. It's a huge hub for live music. But it is a case that resonates everywhere in America. I mean, think about it. If you're going to a show at the Fillmore or the Paramount, right, you have to interact with Ticketmaster. Same thing with buying sporting tickets here. And so that case wound its way through court. It's been probably, 18 months to 2 years. They actually started the trial last week, and it is a jury trial, which is also a really important piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
It is something that we are really proud of in the Biden-Harris administration, that we took technocratic antitrust and we said, shouldn't it be that the people that are actually impacted by this bad conduct get to render judgment on it? And at the time, everyone's like, you're crazy. Juries can't, it's too hard. Juries can't decide antitrust cases. No, I think if they can decide complex criminal cases, they can decide this case. So jury was impaneled last week. They heard a week of testimony. And then this morning, out of the blue, I mean, there had been rumors around lobbyists going to the White House and and the Trump administration had been making noise about, no, this is a really important case. We're going to see it through. We're going to have the trial. And just like in other areas, the Trump administration found a price maybe that it could accept. And so it sounds like, and again, the settlement, I think, just hit the docket, and I can go through like why it's not a settlement yet. But the Department of Justice is looking to end its involvement in this case, it sounds like, and that's really problematic, and it sells out the American people, in my humble opinion.
Wow. I mean, you wouldn't imagine, like, Donald Trump ran on this whole idea that he would lower prices for everybody,
yeah.
Right? And it's in so many ways that when you have this corporate consolidation, right, and this for-profit method, profits at all costs, and these companies are just consolidating, that's what's really increasing prices across the board. And this is just another thing that you see, again, that Republicans and Donald Trump are letting the Americans down from what they supposedly ran on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's wild, right? And it shows that there is a price for everything in this particular moment and in this administration. But affordability is not a new concept. It is something that has gotten a buzz around that word itself. But Donald Trump is aware that costs are crushing Americans, the same Americans that he convinced.
He though? Like this billionaire guy who lives in a golden tower, Mar-a-Lago, he probably doesn't know the price of like eggs or milk.
We'll never forget, I don't think he even knew what the word like groceries was. Like he didn't.
Really?
Yeah. I guarantee you he's never bought in groceries.
Correct.
I think that is right. I suppose when I say aware, I mean more politically aware that this is an issue for Republicans heading into the midterms, and that economic indicators are pointing the wrong direction, right? Like we just saw an incredibly terrible jobs report come out for last month.
Another one.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Another one, right? And 49% of Americans can't afford their rent payments or their mortgage payments, right? 49%. Like that's crazy. And so to me, taking a position in a case that's not just about music, right? Like that's important. It's part of the American experience. But that case is really about thinking about every industry, whether it's like a restaurant that you go to or healthcare, buying up every piece of the puzzle, right? Every piece of the distribution chain, such that they can then squeeze every dollar out. Like internet memes around Ticketmaster and their fees. I don't know if you've seen them. They have like a convenience fee. It's deeply inconvenient, right? Then they have a credit card processing fee. And then they have I saw a joke like a fee-fi-fo-fum fee, a just because we can fee. Like that's what it feels like. And that's what's at stake here.
No, you see this, again, hyper concentration. And then you also see like they want more. It's not enough that just the media companies are owned by a couple media companies. You see this whole Paramount, Ellison merger with.
Oh, I have thoughts there too.
So many thoughts there. But it's also like AI companies. One of the things that they're growing is they just don't want to be software developers and give you ChatGPT. They actually want their AI to also be such a huge conglomerate across the board that they can just have a huge vertical stack that way too.
Well, I mean, I think you see that another big case that I'm quite proud of. There are two cases that we brought against Google, and both won at the liability phase, which was, our generation's Microsoft or Standard Oil, right? And I think that speaks to one of the concerns we had with respect to the Google search monopoly. So Google didn't become a verb on accident, right? Like it became a verb because they squeezed out all the other competitors. And the reason that matters is that now that they have that giant search monopoly, that then gives them a head start on the AI arms race, such that no one else can meaningfully compete, to your point. But like the AI, the broader, like taking a step back, there's so much written and talked about with respect to AI. And I think what I try to tell people as someone who has had to talk to juries about complicated financial instruments like crypto, or trying to explain to judges how like dark pools and high frequency trading works, is that there's nothing new under the sun in the sense of the law. And so a robot cannot do that which you and I cannot do. And so
they can't host a podcast.
Well, I mean,
Hopefully
they probably will, actually.
Oh no.
We'll get a bunch of AI slop. It's fine.
Okay.
My point is just that I don't think as enforcers that we should be scared about the exotic nature of the technology. The enforcement principles are there, and it takes courage and tenacity, but we can hold them to account.
And I just hearing about, before we switch topics, I'm curious if what would be a meaningful outcome for that Ticketmaster trial? Like what would be an ideal situation that would have resulted?
Well, my view and our view in the last administration was a breakup and then a number of other structural remedies. And by structural, it means separating certain parts of the business line, making it so that like Ticketmaster can sign 4 and 5 year exclusive arrangements with arenas, which means for that 4-year period, no one else can compete in that space. That's crazy, right? What I will tell you, though, is that the DOJ settlement, to the extent that it gets approved, and antitrust is different. The parties can't just decide to settle the case. The court ultimately is going to have to hold a hearing to decide whether the settlement's in the public interest, and that's huge.
That is pretty important.
Right?
Is the judge on this like a Trump-appointed judge or Obama-Biden judge?
It's Arun Subramanian, a Biden-appointed former plaintiff's lawyer.
We like to see that. A plaintiff's lawyer, too?
Yeah.
So, a little context there. Plaintiff's lawyers are a little bit usually more consumer-friendly, a little bit more civil justice-orientated. And so that's really good to hear.
Yeah. He was really unhappy this morning, as I understand from the transcript, that the settlement was sprung on him because a jury's been impaneled. But what I was going to tell you, to your point, Anna, or to your question, Anna, is that no matter what DOJ does, the states, that's why it was really important to build that bipartisan coalition of states. States are still there, and states still have the right to continue to take this case to trial and keep that case in front of a jury. And so if DOJ settles, Colorado is still in it, New York is still in it, California is still in it. They can try that case, and that's why the AG's job is so important in this administration and going forward. Is Colorado needs to make sure that our next attorney general has the experience and the background to be able to take on these kinds of fights. And that's, been in my wheelhouse for a long time.
Yeah. No, definitely. So related to the Ticketmaster story, I know that this raises like broader questions about the concentration of power, not just with ticketing, but also like media and tech. And so I am less familiar in the space, but there's also the Ellison and Warner Brothers. I don't want to say fiasco, but
a little bit of fiasco. We're going to
If
have
the
a
shoe
billionaire
fits.
oligarch own. It's an insane amount. It's like they're positioning themselves. So for our audience who might not know a little bit about this, Larry Ellison is the founder and owner of Oracle, which just bought like 25% of TikTok too, but usually the second or third or fourth richest man. His son and him have been buying up different media conglomerates and media organizations, ByteDance, Paramount, and now Warner Brothers. So they're sort of positioning themselves to be this new like Murdoch family, essentially, where they're going to have control over huge swaths of a news empire, social media empire, and of course movies and television. And Netflix, of course, was originally looking into this. But you see this, again, when the government should be stopping these monopolies, they're starting to merge together. And you said you had some thoughts on this.
Yeah, I do. So the public may have seen, there was a what is it called? A three-way love triangle, or anyway, there was a love triangle involving Warner Brothers Discovery, which has both movie theaters and streaming content and other like media content, as you were saying. And then there was Netflix, who was trying to buy, and then there was Paramount, which is owned by the Ellison family. And so there was a whole public courtship, a hostile takeover. There will probably be a movie made about all of this at some point if there are any movie studios left, and Paramount has won. And so the problem is, like, everyone is talking about this as if it's a done deal. It is it has red flags all over this deal. The reality is that antitrust enforcers and the public, we shouldn't be starting from a place that Warner Brothers Discovery needs to be sold, right? Like,
exactly.
They should run their business. They should be pioneers. They should make content. They should compete. And so I reject the idea that we had to pick one of the two offers that was the better offer, right? I think we should follow the facts and see if Warner Brothers Discovery can compete on its own. Putting that aside, though, Paramount competes with Warner Brothers Discovery right now in movie theaters and production of movies and in streaming services. So when those two companies combine, by the way, the combined company is going to take on $79 billion of debt. What are they going to do when they combine in order to pay that debt down? They're going to fire a bunch of people.
Everyone's prices go up and people get fired.
There you go. And antitrust law exists to deal with that. And so while the rest of the public may have moved on and said Paramount is going to buy Warner Brothers Discovery, my money is on tough antitrust enforcement, not just at the federal level, because we are seeing that you can work your way around the various laws and rules at the federal level.
Bribe the Trump kids a little bit, bribe Jared Kushner, and then there you go.
But you're going to see state AGs that, again, are going to step into the breach and demonstrate what real leadership is about in this moment, because there's no problem that is too big to just let proceed, right? Like, this is too consequential. It's our media. It's the news we consume. I think the greatest issue facing American society right now is that we cannot agree on a set of facts from which we proceed. This deal directly ties to that issue. And so if this deal goes through and enforcers realize that it means that we have less creative content, fewer news outlets, it's fewer diversity of stories being told, it's reducing the surface area for that common set of facts, which I think is problematic.
Yeah, we live in such
a real downer.
What a fun era to live in.
I know.
Unless they buy our podcast, then of course we love it. Joking. We are going to stay
no promises that we won't sue you. Then
they'll be excited. We become so big, we just take over all the podcasts that happen in attics.
Sorry, it's so funny, but no, we don't want to end on a downer note, because while it can feel like all of this is happening beyond our control, there are actions we can take in our day-to-day lives, things within our locus of control that give us agency, in the day-to-day. And so we love to end with our call to action, which Hetal was saying a little bit. If you want to continue to have more options when it comes to really anything, I mean, we can't talk about supporting, it could be supporting local journalism. It could just be with where you spend your dollar and thinking about where you get your groceries, and supporting small, medium-sized corporations or local businesses versus monopolies. So, for example, not shopping at Whole Foods or Amazon, and instead, if you need to get a hardware piece, don't use your Amazon Prime, or cancel your Amazon Prime and go to your local Ace Hardware store or your other local mom and pop hardware shop. And Hetal, anything else to add to this?
No, I think that's hugely important. I also think, to the extent that you see this Ticketmaster problem as a problem, the court is going to take public comments on that. And so we will get to you to provide information to anyone who wants to write in. And when public comment is taken on this settlement, to say this is not a settlement that is in the interest of the American people. But to Anna's point, as someone who's had to defend these actions in court, the worst thing that monopolists can say is consumers prefer us. So speak with your dollars, vote your values on these issues, and make sure that they don't have that argument to make that people actually prefer a consolidated industry. Because if you ask people, that's not actually true. So let's follow through with our action on that. That's why I love a call to action.
Yeah.
I love it. We'll put some stuff in the show notes that you'll give us links to.
So again, all these little actions add up, and happy early birthday.
Thank you. This was so fun. Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, Anna, Hetal, thanks so much for being here. We'll link your campaign in the show notes. It's been a fantastic time.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
Wait, did you want to tell people where they can find out more about your...
Yeah,
race?
well, if you have a minute, I'm going to tell you, so my name.
Oh, yeah, we've been
Yeah.
saying different names for you.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's Hetal, sometimes it's Hetal.
Yeah.
I knew you as Hetal because I think I knew you from the South Asian attorney world.
Yeah.
But I feel like you've lately been saying Hetal.
I've always said both or the other, depending on where I am. I mean, this is something that for those of us who grew up where English was not our first language and we have names that are not easily anglicizable, is that a word?
Not everyone blessed with the name Deep.
Yeah, there you go. Although I heard people said that we're criticizing you for anglicizing your name. You're like, no, literally, my name is
It's
Deep.
an Indian name is Deep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's Pradeep, the full name. But...
That's true.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so here's what I will tell you. There isn't a perfect transliteration to the Roman alphabet for my name as it's written in Hindi. So that's why there's sometimes it's Hetal, Hetal, either of those is fine. Family members call me both.
Miss Attorney General, preferably.
Well, Madam.
Madam.
Yeah. Don't get it twisted. But I will say one of the pieces, you get a lot of feedback as a candidate. You know, some of it is maddening. It'll be like, that lipstick color looks crappy on you, like change it. I feel like you're feeling where I'm coming from on this. Okay, great. But then some of it is like, your name is too hard. And as a candidate, you should make it easier. Maybe you should go by the name Heather instead.
It's 5 letters. Heather's longer.
Oh, my gosh.
Also, it's like it's a great name, but it makes me think of Heather's the movie from 1980s. Anyway, I took that feedback on and I thought, I'm definitely not changing my name, but how do I acknowledge the fact that, you know, there are well-meaning people that are still struggling with it, right? And so the place to find out more about the campaign is a way that we have met this moment, which is to say you can go to www.hetaltothemetal.com.
I like it.
So put the Hetal to the metal for Colorado is a way that I hope people can appreciate how to pronounce the name and also remember the name.
You should get some rally signs that said that too.
Those are in process.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you once again, Hetal.
Hetal.
Whatever.
Not Heather.
And Anna, thank you for such a great episodes. And thank you to our audience and our listeners for tuning in. As always, please leave us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever else you find podcasts until they're into one verticalized monopoly. Leave the reviews places. YouTube, Instagram, check out the show notes.
Thanks to
and
Jesse Broom.
Yes, shout out to our graphic design person, Jesse Broom, and our social media manager. And we'll see you
Oh
next
my God,
time.
y'all are crushing it on that front, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I could probably take some notes, so, you know.
Well, she actually does a lot of campaigns too, so
Oh,
if
yeah?
you want.
All right.
Yeah, check it out. Okay. Bye.
This was so fun, y'all. It flew by.
I know.
Thank you. The sun was creeping up too. So.
Yeah.
We didn't even get to talk
47
about,
minutes.
like, trauma bonds of
I
former
know.
feds.